Games die from 1,000 cuts, man. 1,000. For every game that's good, there's many more that just don't really make the cut. Why? I think sometimes it's just because there's too many cuts. Yandere Dev is a very strong example. This game is never coming out, and if it does, it's not going to be good. The code looks like this. To anybody who's been working on large projects, this is just, it's so bad. It's just so bad. And the reason is because even though this is kind of small and harmless and an isolated example, when you proliferate unorganized code that's hard to maintain across the code base, eventually you can't work on the game anymore. You just can't. It's 1,000 cuts. I think in a lot of cases, games turn out bad, not because of some big thing or some grand lack of vision, but just because there's too many cuts and not enough work put to dress those wounds. And even when a game like Space Engineers, it executes well on what it was trying to do, I think that its design is just fundamentally misguided in 1,000 different ways. And so these are not problems. It's not death by 1,000 cuts from programming. More so, there's just 1,000 weird design choices that add up to a very boring experience. Space Engineers is actually not that good of a game, in my opinion. Even though it's very technically impressive and it's fun to imagine what you could do with it, you can't actually do that much with it. And you can look at these big problems kind of in isolation, but really these seemingly big problems are made of 1,000 little ones. Each one of these, they have their own sub-problems. Same thing with the overcomplicated UI. That's just like a overcomplicated UI is just it's a general term for the phenomenon of, part of the problem is there's just a lot in the game. And so in order to display all the relevant information to players, you just have to put a lot on the screen. And so that's why it's confusing. There are a lot of cuts that kind of wear down the experience of playing Space Engineers, is my point. You look at something like MuseScore 3, and it's like, why is it confusing and odd to use? I don't know. It's just 1,000 reasons. There's weird buttons like here, and the thing doesn't really. There's like 2 ways to start and stop playback. Like, what does this MIDI button mean? There's like all these formats that have like a billion options. And in MuseScore 4, they just individually addressed all of these issues. Just somebody was responsible for the experience of using MuseScore, and they just decided one by one, each cut, they healed. They were like, okay, we're going to add an effects mixer. We're going to do this specific thing. We're going to make the buttons like this. You know what I mean? They centralized and consolidated things. They just put in the work. I've been making a few of these platforming levels as a design exercise. And this is a web game called Jerry's Mod. And my idea for this level was just simply to have an elevator going down. It's like the main gimmick. And then it's kind of like Mario's Maker. And then you just have to defeat challenges that are kind of around you as you go down this elevator. And the idea is there. But there are just a lot of tiny execution problems that cause the level to be kind of bad to play. Like here's some annotated notes, right? Just all of the problems with the execution on the design. It's 1,000 cuts. And then the level bleeds to death. Here's a level where another designer went in and just fixed all that stuff, but kept the same motif, and it's so much better. It's like clean to play. It's interesting. The one key point I want to make here, though, is the initial idea, the spark, was still necessary. Like the idea to make an elevator level was necessary. And without that, it wouldn't be interesting. But the execution is what stopped the new and interesting idea from bleeding to death. My game Astris, it needs a lot of care and work put into it so that it doesn't bleed to death. There's just a lot of problems with the initial experience right now that I am struggling to remedy. And not just that, but I need to be very, very careful that I don't get into too many cuts on the technical level as well. Yandere Dev code will just kill your project. This will actually just kill any potential that what you're working on has if you write code too poorly, in a way that doesn't scale as you work on it. I've had a few projects like that die on me before. Now, I'm not letting it happen to Astris, which you can play for free by clicking the link in the description. I got the lightning shader I was talking about yesterday working in-game, though. Look at that, it's beautiful. Gives you some nice feedback that the scanner has some stuff you don't know. You go over it, and then it teaches you, and then it goes away. I do kind of want to add a cosmetic effect of that electricity traveling to the player to show you that you gain something from that exchange. I'll do that once I do a whole pass of cosmetic effects on the game. But yeah, the Patreon release is very soon. I'm working on the title screen and the server select screen. And I'm really, really trying to tune down the design of this solar system so it's not so empty and sad. Drawing from all the level design principles I've learned and trying to address the 1,000 cuts. There's a bunch of videos like this one on my channel in a playlist called The Game. Watch them now. Subscribe if this was relevant and interesting to you.